coming in, so we have to wait a bit for them. Okay. So this is a new joint work with Mike Jolly from Indiana University and with Idris Titi from the Weizmann Institute of Science. And we basically introduce a new data assimilation algorithm for the 2D Bénard convection model. Okay, so what is data assimilation? Like in real life, when you want to do some assimilation on some model, you need a full initial condition. But the problem that in real life, for example, if you have the ocean and you want initial condition, you need the initial condition to be on the whole space. But in real life, we only can take measurements on discrete set. So there is part of this initial condition missing. And here where data assimilation comes in, because we use data assimilation in order to complete this initial condition or enhance this initial condition. So when we think about data assimilation, we think about the long-time behavior of our dynamical system, and automatically or natural basis for data assimilation, we think about determining nodes, modes, or global attractors. So with determining modes, this is actually the work that was done by Henshu, Kreises, and Dijkstrom, also in TT 2003, and also in T 2008. What you can do, you can take measurements of the low modes and then insert them into the equation of the high modes. So you split your system into equation for low modes, equation for high modes. You take measurements on low modes, you insert them into the system of the high modes, you solve, and after some time, eventually sometime T1, you can take the solution for the high modes, combine it with the solution of the low modes, and this will form a complete approximation for your initial condition. So, as I said, this is a joint work with also NTT recently, 2003, 2008, and previously by Henshu, Kreis, and Dijkstrom 2003. Now, there was a new algorithm that was introduced by Aswani and Titi in 2013, and by Aswani also in 2014, which it has ideas from control theory. And the model or the algorithm that they introduced says the following. You start with a dynamical system, du by dt equals fu, and you want to solve for a solution u, but you have the initial condition u0 missing. So they introduce, before they introduce, let me tell you what IH is. So let's IH be the measurements or the observations of the reference solution at some resolution H. Then you take these measurements and insert them as a feedback control term into the equation. So you solve for V with forcing with being the right-hand side being this feedback control that comes from the measurements of the reference solution. Now, if you look into the system, here I write V0 equal V naught. So there are actually two advantages of this system. One advantage, here we have U0 being missing. Here I add the condition V0, V naught, and I don't care what this initial condition is. So here, the initial condition V0 can be arbitrary. You can take it 0. You can take it whatever you want. Now, another advantage that this set IH actually can be any measurements, not necessarily only low modes. So there are two kinds of measurements that they studied, and these IHs can be associated with two kinds of operators in that paper. One operators that take you from H1, L2, and satisfy this approximation identity, or the operators that take you from H2 into L2 and satisfy this approximation identity. Now, to give you a physical example on the first type, for example, you think about the finite volume elements for example, to the Navier-Stokes. This is the paper by Jones and Titi 2013. A physical example on the second kind is nodal sets values or discrete measurements of your solution. So the feedback control term here in this equation somehow forces the larger scales of the solution V towards the larger scales of the solution, the reference solution U. So this is what this term does. So it makes a force towards the larger scales of the initial or the reference solution. Okay, now in the 2013, or the published 2014 paper, they studied the conditions on this mu and this h. So you see, when we added the feedback control, I added the feedback control with some coefficient to mu being positive. They call the relaxation parameter. And in 2014 paper, they they studied or found the conditions on this mu and this h, the solution h, such that the reference solution, or the approximation solution goes towards the reference solution for the 2D Navier-Stokes exponentially in time. All right, now we come to the Bénard convection model. Here is the model, and I think everybody's familiar with this model. This is U being the temperature, this is U being the velocity of the fluid, theta being the temperature or the density of the fluid. So the Bénard convection, as you know, represents the motion of a fluid between two heated plates, or like a fluid heated from below. So you think about it in a box that you have a temperature T0, which is higher than a temperature T1 on the top. Now, the Rayleigh-Bénard convection model comes originally from the 2D business system. You just simply like change variables, do some rescaling, and this is where the extra term UE2 comes in the second equation. So you can think about it as like forced 2D business system, but it's forced through the boundary conditions on the temperature. And after changing variables, this system comes with Dirichlet boundary conditions on top and bottom for theta, and Dirichlet boundary conditions you get for U on top and bottom as well. So these Dirichlet boundary conditions kind of, they come after change of variables in the original 2D business system. Now, so this is the case, the boundary conditions for the vertical direction. For the horizontal direction, you can take any kind of boundary conditions you like, but for example, let's say take periodic. But you can take them Dirichlet, you can take many sorts of boundary conditions, and these boundary conditions actually were like, there are many boundary conditions that were discussed in the paper by Fayage, Manley, and Timam in 1987, where they studied this system and proved like the existence of weak solutions for both 2D and 3D case, and then they proved the existence of a global attractor for the 2D case. Okay, now why we take the Bénard, for example, not the 2D Bézinesque? Because if we want to take the 2D Bézinesque, you should add forcing, because we want like a non-trivial global attractor. So one way of taking a non-trivial global attractor is to consider the Bénard convection model. All right, so this is a very simple observation, somehow that inspired this work, is that if you look into this 2D Bénard convection model, and you look into two solutions on the global attractor of the Bénard problem, or the 2D Bénard problem, for example, U1, theta 1, U2, theta 2, and you observe that if you assume that U1 equal U2 on the global attractor, then automatically theta 1 should equal theta 2 on the global attractor. So in other words, like the values of the temperature or the density theta on the global attractor A are completely determined by the velocity vector field on the global attractor. So this inspired the idea of constructing an algorithm where we need only measurements on the vector field of the velocity field of the fluid, and we don't need to take measurements on theta. Now, if you look into the previous, I should go back really fast, just to give you the difference. So here, the original data assimilation algorithm assumes that you have to add the measurements on the whole right-hand side of the system. So the Rayleigh-Bénard problem, you have to add measurements on the U and the U equation, and you have measurements or the feedback control from the measurements on theta of the theta equation. But here we are proposing that we only need just to take measurements on U, and we don't need measurements on theta, and we have only one feedback control in the equation of U. And actually, we were able to show that the approximate solution of this new algorithm converges exponentially to the reference solution of the Bénard convection model. So in real life, you don't need to take, like when you go to the labs, you want to like take measurements. We are proposing that you don't care about the measurements of the temperature, because on the global attractor, the temperature is determined completely by the velocity. All right, so to talk about the solutions of the approximate or the data assimilation algorithm, first you have to prove that these solutions exist. And you can just do some a priori estimates. You use the usual or the general theory of Navier-Stokes equations, for example. You get Galergan like sequence, and you pass to the limit using the Bain compactness theorem. And you prove that by then this data assimilation, this new algorithm, actually the solution, it has a strong solution we call it V eta. And this actually, this solution depends continuously on the initial data. So we have well-posedness for the new algorithm. And from there, we say, okay, suppose that I have the solution U and theta be the solution of the global attractor for the Bénard convection. So this is my reference solution. And let's take this solution, V eta of my data assimilation algorithm. Then I say under some certain conditions on mu and h, like h being the resolution, namely I need the condition that mu C0 square h square bounded by nu, where C0, I will show you what C0 on the next slide. And I choose mu large enough, depending on the viscosity of the fluid, on the kappa, lambda 1, and L. Then the solution of the data assimilation V algorithm converges to U, and the solution eta of the data algorithm, of the data assimilation algorithm, converges to theta exponentially in time. No, you have a nu, and then you cook mu. So for any nu you have, any kappa you have, you cook the corresponding mu, and you get the convergence.
But that mu has to be less than nu up there.
No, but you have h, so you cook, like you play with h and mu, both of them, not only one. So you choose h very small, mu very large, and you make it all less than u. Okay, so this finishes almost half of my talk, or I still have 5 minutes, true? Okay. So I meant, okay. So the proof is, okay, just the same way that you prove somehow well positiveness, but you run into some technical details. So namely, you call W equals U minus V, U being the solution of the original binary problem. And here I call C, which is like theta minus eta, theta being the original solution of the binary problem. And you write a differential, or writing a system for this difference W and Xc. And this is written in the functional settings. And since we are talking about strong solutions on the global attractor, so we can use Lyon's lemma, and we can take the inner product with W and AW if we wish. So there are two kinds of interpolants, as I said in the beginning. So this is the kind, like, if you, like this P sigma being the Leray projection on the divergence-free condition, on the divergence-free space. So if I take the first kind of operators or observable operators, mainly like these operators that are the finite volumes, if you wish. So I can write, this is the C0 that comes from the theorem. This is C0 is the constant on this, in this approximation identity. So here we can take the inner product, because you see here, there's a V norm in the right-hand side, so I can the inner product with U, and then I can just, for the feedback control term, I can add and subtract W, and I get two terms. One of them is positive that will be absorbed in the viscosity later on, and then there is a negative term here that I will take advantage of later on. And then we do like the usual Holder inequality, Young's inequality, Legionskaya, Poincaré on the other terms, mainly the right-hand side that comes from theta and W, and then on the nonlinearity, and both equations of U or of W and Xc. And by the end of the day, you get an equation that looks like this. So mainly that you have an equation for the sum of the two L2 norms is written like, it has this form, where alpha actually is this quantity. And again, U and theta are the solutions on the global attractor for the binary problem. So we have estimates on these quantities. We can use the estimates on the global attractor onto these two terms. And okay, and after we use the estimates on the global attractor for these two quantities, I wish to use this uniform Galois lemma. This uniform Galois lemma was proved by Jones and Titi in 1993 in their paper, and namely says that if you have a locally integrable function that satisfies an ODE that looks like this, and you know that alpha satisfies these two conditions, namely that the lim inf of the integral t plus cap t, where cap t is any positive number, is greater or equal than gamma, gamma being strictly positive, and the negative part of alpha satisfies that the limit soup is finite, then y of t goes exponential to 0 as t goes to infinity. So combining the definition of alpha and the bounds on these quantities on the global attractor, I can cook the right mu that I wish, where G0, G1 are constant, depends on now on nu, on kappa, on L, on lambda 1. And then I cook my mu to be large enough such that alpha satisfies the requirements of the uniform Galois lemma, and then I can conclude by the uniform Galois lemma that these two, like the sum of these two altonorms converges to 0 exponential in time. So the idea is the same for the second kind of interpolants, but here you have to work a bit harder because this takes you from H2 into L2. So you have to take the inner product. There is a typo here. So this is one of them. It should be A. Okay. Now, here you should take the inner product with AW, not with W. So you get estimates on the H1 norm of the solution, not the L2 norm. So you take the inner product with AW, and again, you repeat the same argument. You add subtract W. This is your estimate on the feedback control term. One part will be absorbed in the viscosity later on. One part is negative, and we will take advantage of it later. And for the nonlinearity term, like I'm assuming, like just for simplicity here, fully periodic boundary conditions, even though this is not the physical case, but just to show you the estimate, you can use the orthogonality property of the nonlinearity in 2D when you take the inner product with AW, and then you can rewrite your nonlinearity to be just only this term, and then you use the Brazil-Galois inequality. Now, after you use the Brazil-Galois inequality, you do the estimates on the other terms the usual way. You use Poincaré, Ire-Digenskaya, you use, I don't know, what else would you use? Holder inequality, we use Agmon's inequality, and we write an ODE that looks like this, now again for the V norm of W and the L2 norm of Xi. So, and then my alpha will be this coefficient, or this term, all of this is alpha, and again, this is my W, this is my difference solution. Theta and U are the solutions on the global attractor. So we have estimates for this and this. And then we use just a simple like elementary calculus identity that says that R minus beta 1 plus log R to the 1/2 is usually always greater or equal than negative beta log beta. So we take the advantage of this identity with specific beta and R, and we simplify our alpha to look like this. Now, we have only AW, I have only theta. So I now have estimates on those on the global attractor, and then I cook the right mu that gives me the conditions on alpha for the uniform granular inequality. And this will give us that the V norm of W plus the L2 norm of Xi are converging to 0. In other words, the two solutions are converging to each other in time. Thank you.
We have time for